Today I'm going to show you how to make a rag quilt. Now a rag quilt is a little bit different because all of the seams are on the top and you cut into them, wash the quilt, pop it into the tumble dryer and it all becomes lovely raggy edge. The rag quilt is really lovely, it's very tactile and actually over a period of time the more you wash it and the more you use it, it actually becomes more raggy and much softer. And I'm going to show you how to construct the blocks. So, you're going to need fabric and you're also going to need wadding, and in this occasion I'm going to use the Vlieseline 279 cotton wadding, which is just delightful to work with. Now to cut the wadding squares, what you're going to do is use the reverse of your rotary cutting mat so you don't get any fibres on the front. You're going to use your rotary cutter and you're going to use your ruler and you'll just cut through as normal. So these are going to be 5-inch squares. So I will cut there. If you've got a marking pen, you can use that. You could use a square. You may have a ruler that you can use. You could of course use scissors. So there'd be no reason why you couldn't use scissors, but a more efficient and quick way of cutting through multiples is using your rotary cutter and ruler. So once you've cut your wadding, what you're then going to do is you're going to get your fabrics. Now your fabrics can be scrap fabrics, it's brilliant with denim fabrics, but on this occasion I'm going to use charm squares, which are 5-inch pre-cut squares, and you're literally going to pop one square with the right side of the fabric facing down, pop the wadding on top and then pop the other square with the right side facing you. I'm going to show you with this one because it's a little bit more obvious. So one fabric has the right side facing towards the table, then pop on your Vlieseline 279 wadding and then finally pop on your other square of fabric or shape of fabric, because you could do rectangles, it doesn't have to be squares, but make sure that the fabric is facing towards you. Pop a pin in the middle to keep all of the layers together. Now in patchwork and quilting, we usually work, so if this was the right side and that was the right side, where the right sides are together. With rag quilting, you can mess with your brain a little bit because you're going to go wrong side to wrong side. Now what I want with this particular quilt is I want all of the dark fabrics to be on one side and all of the light fabrics to be on the other side. So the dark fabrics are going to go to the back of my quilt and the light fabrics are going to be the top of the quilt. So for me to put wrong sides together, I'm going to put dark to dark. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew along here. Now you don't want to be using a 1/4-inch seam allowance. You need to use a 1/2-inch seam allowance, which is considerably bigger. So this is your 1/4-inch seam allowance here, and this is your 1/2-inch seam allowance. Now we're going to go to the machine and I'm going to show you how to set up your needle to give you a 1/2-inch seam allowance. So the first thing I want to do is to establish my seam allowance, and so I'm going to put the edge of my ruler and the edge of my foot so they marry up together, and I'm going to lower the presser foot. Now if you've got an automatic presser foot lower button, don't use it on top of your ruler because you might break it. So just take that off and then manually pop it up and just lower it. Now what I want to do is to move my needle across, so whether that's your width button because it's a straight stitch, or you may have a specific button, which I have on this particular machine, that can just move it across. So now I know I've got a 1/2-inch seam allowance. So I've popped the fabrics. Remember, they're wrong sides together. Can mess with your brain a little bit if you're a regular patchwork and quilter. And you're going to pop one underneath there like that. Lower the presser foot, and I really recommend, because regardless of which of the Vlieseline waddings you may be using, you could use the 276 natural cotton white, you could be using the Vlieseline 279 80-20 cotton mix, or you could be using the Vlieseline R80 or any of the other Vlieseline waddings. You still need to use a foot that can cope with those thicknesses. Now the other thing to make sure that you do is that you start sewing from the very edge of your work, and if necessary you'll just do a couple of stitches and then just do a couple of reverse stitches. So we'll sew those together. Now you can chain piece this. Chain piecing is great, and chain piecing saves your thread. So I'll just grab another 2 here out of the pile. So remember, our one dark fabrics is going to be my wrong side. We'll have not necessarily 2 together. It's a great way of using up scraps. I thought I picked up 2 together. Pick a green one up. That's it, but they're 2. So dark fabric in my case to dark fabric. And then I'm just going to raise the presser foot, and I don't need to do any reverse stitching. And then I'll continue sewing. So the stitch length is 3, remember, and the seam allowance is considerably bigger than you'd normally use because it's a 1/2 inch. So we'll take those 2 out and we'll clip them apart. Now when it comes to sewing these together, just open the seams, finger press. Do the same with the other one, and finger press. And we're going to have the same principle. Remember, my dark side is my wrong side, so it's going to be wrong side to wrong side, and then pop a pin in just to get that married up there. I'll have another pin for the end. You could use quilt clips as well if you didn't want to use pins, because we are talking about quite a bit of thickness here. And pop that under the machine, and we're going to sew in exactly the same way. So lower the presser foot. Now just be aware that when you come to your seams, you've got a lot of fabric going on, a lot of thickness. So I'm just going to raise the presser foot, make sure everything's flat on the top, make sure everything's flat on the bottom. You can usually feel it, and just take your time. And the joy about this is if there's any slight discrepancies, it's all going to disappear in the process of the trimming and the cutting. Now when you've completed all of your blocks and you've got your project together, what you're then going to do is remove your pins. And the next stage is lovely to do. I always think mindlessly in front of the TV or sitting in the garden. I'm just going to open those 2 seams up there, like that and like that. And then you're going to do clips into the seam up to the stitching line, not past the stitching line, just up to the stitching line. Once you've done that, you're going to dampen your whole project and then pop it into the tumble dryer, and it will all fluff up. So just do regular, doesn't matter where you cut. As I say, it's just not precise, it's just lovely. This is the joy of this particular project. So if your seams weren't absolutely perfect, once it starts to rag and fray, because it's effectively what it's doing, can you see now? You've got that lovely effect there, and over a period of time you will end up with a lovely raggy quilt. As you can see, Vlieseline has a wide range of products, each with different properties and benefits for your projects. You can view the whole range on the Vlieseline website, where you can download the brochure, which has detailed information on all of the products across our 4 categories. You can also join the conversation with us on our Facebook page, Creative Community Group and Instagram. All of the details are below.